I never expected a call in Chinese to change my life, but the next day, I was fired. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It started like any other day, the sun filtering through my bedroom curtains, the aroma of coffee curling into the air. I had my routine. But the moment my phone rang, everything shifted. The screen showed an unknown number. My heart raced, said the voice on the other end. The words sounded beautiful yet foreign, like a puzzle missing pieces. I barely understood. Just a week ago, I had enrolled in Chinese classes, hoping to explore a different culture. But this? I wasn't ready for this. The few words exchanged were frantic. My pulse thrummed loudly in my ears. It felt like the call was alive, crackling with energy. My throat tightened as the voice began to urge me, imploring me to listen, to respond. I fumbled with my words, embarrassed as I managed a few broken phrases from my lessons. The voice turned cold, pulsing with urgency. I felt it piercing through my chest. When I hung up, confusion coated my thoughts. I slipped into my job with this heavy weight on my shoulders, but questions swirled. Who was that? What did they want? A chill ran down my spine. I didn't see it coming. Then, everything unraveled. My boss called me into his office, face grave like a storm cloud. The air was thick with tension. My hands trembled as I sat across from him. "We can't keep you on," he said, words hitting me like a slap. "We need to cut costs." The room spun. I fought to breathe. I was fired. The world felt alien. My dreams, my plans, all crumbling like fragile glass. But I didn't do anything wrong, I stammered, my voice shaking. I could almost feel the walls closing in, the silence echoing with disbelief. His pitying eyes told me there was more at play. There was a flicker of something in his gaze, like I was just a pawn in a game I didn't understand. As I walked out of the office, it hit me I had no idea what that call really meant. Panic swallowed me whole. Why was I being targeted? What did I miss? Outside, the wind howled, almost mocking me as my heart fought to keep pace with the chaos in my mind. I stood there, a wave of helplessness crashing over me. I should have asked more questions. I should have pressed harder. Everything around me felt surreal, each face in the crowd a blur. My life was shattering, and suddenly that mysterious voice loomed larger than life in my mind, shadows wrapping around every thought and making every breath a struggle. Then, as I stood lost in desperation, my phone buzzed again. I froze, dread pooling in my stomach. What now? The screen lit Upanither unknown caller. My heart thundered, each heartbeat echoing the urgency of 1,000 questions. Would this call finally reveal the truth or plunge me deeper into dread? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The buzzing didn't stop. My eyes were glued to the screen, the tension palpable as I awaited a voice, any voice, that might either bring clarity or further chaos. I hesitated, heart pounding, a primal instinct shouting at me to run. But curiosity tugged at me, and before I could rationalize my decision, I answered. My own voice sounded foreign, trembling on the word. The silence stretched, a heavy tension swirling in the air. Then, like a burst of static, a voice broke through with urgency. You must listen. They know about you. I gripped my phone tighter, a chill dancing down my spine. Who knows about me? What do you want? Every word felt like treading on unstable ground, poised to crack beneath me. Not here. Too dangerous. Meet me in the park. 2 hours. Trust no one. The voice cut off abruptly before I could respond. I stared at my phone, the weight of the world crashing back down. Trust no one. The very concept seemed ludicrous. My mind spiraled into paranoia as I thought of all the faces in the office, my colleagues who once smiled during coffee breaks, now potential threats gliding through shadows. Who was this person? Why did they think I was in danger? I felt pangs of isolation creeping in again, but amidst the fear and uncertainty was a flicker of hope, a shred of clarity. If I could find answers, maybe I could regain some control over the chaos that threatened to swallow me whole. I had to go. I had to know. Time crawled as I paced around my small apartment, waiting for the clock to signal that it was time to move. I tried to shake the erratic rhythm of anxiety coursing through me, replaying every scenario in my mind. What if it was a trap? What if they were the reason I had lost my job? But the thought of staying in the dark felt even scarier. When I finally stepped outside, the sun hung low in the sky, cloaked in shades of orange and pink, casting long shadows that danced with uncertainty. I made my way to the park, the familiar paths now twisted and unfamiliar. Each step echoed my trepidation, anxiety gnawing at my insides. Upon arriving, I scanned the park, families sprawled on picnic blankets, children playing, laughter ringing in the air like a cruel reminder of normalcy. I felt like an intruder amid this mundane happiness. My heart quickened as I spotted a figure leaning against a tree, obscured by the canopy of leaves overhead. As I approached, every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but curiosity outweighed fear. The figure shifted slightly, revealing a woman in her late 30s, her gaze piercing yet wary, her hands fidgeting with a cell phone like a tangled thread. "Are you?" My voice trailed off, uncertainty clouding my judgment. "Did you get the call?" she asked, her eyes locking onto mine with a knowing intensity. "Yes," I breathed, a mixture of hope and dread flooding my chest. "We don't have much time. You are in serious danger. They're watching you," she continued, glancing around as if shadows might leap out from behind the trees. "Did you notice anything strange after that call?" I swallowed hard, recalling the peculiar stillness that had enveloped my office, the almost oppressive gaze of my boss moments before the news of my termination. I was fired the next day. After that call, her expression darkened, the concerns in her eyes pulling me deeper into her gravity. "They know about your lessons, the interest you've shown. They see opportunities and threats in their own twisted way." The confusion within me morphed into something different, hot anger. "What do you mean? I didn't do anything. I was just trying to learn." She took a deep breath, her pulse quickening visibly. "That's just it. You have something they want. Something valuable." Before I could process her words, a deep sense of impending dread washed over me. I felt eyes on my back, as if the world had shifted yet again, and I was now the center of it, a pawn in a game I couldn't comprehend. "Do you know what it is?" I pressed, seeking some semblance of clarity amidst the chaos. But just as she opened her mouth to respond, the shrill sound of sirens sliced through the stillness of the park. My heart plummeted as a dark SUV screeched to a halt nearby, its windows tinted like a veil hiding the unknown, and the woman's face paled. "Run!" she shouted, urgency crackling in the air. Without thinking, I turned on my heel, propelled by pure adrenaline as I stumbled back into the labyrinth of the park, my heart racing. With every frantic step, the world around me blurred, moments of clarity slipping through my grasp like sand. All I could hear was my breath and the haunting echoes of her warning, "They're watching you." And in the rushing wind, a realization struck me hard: this was only the beginning. The labyrinth of the park twisted around me, trees morphing into blurbs of green and brown as I sprinted, my pulse echoing in my ears like a rallying drum. The shrill wail of sirens grew closer, a cacophony that mirrored the chaos erupting within me. Every instinct urged me to dive into the thick brush, to conceal myself from whatever threat lurked beyond the trees, but as I glanced over my shoulder, I caught a glimpse of the dark SUV, the metal glinting ominously in the fading daylight. I veered sharply to the left, narrowly avoiding a cluster of joggers who looked at me, their faces painted with a blend of confusion and concern. I fought the impulse to stop, to call for help, but I couldn't afford to draw attention to myself. Not now. With each frantic footfall, fragments of fear intermingled with anger, spiraling into a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I had done nothing wrong, yet here I was, fleeing from unknown pursuers armed with a warning from a stranger whose intentions I still questioned. What did it mean to have something valuable? What had I unwittingly gotten myself tangled in? Just as the sounds of pursuit behind me seemed to intensify, a hand shot out from the shadow of a nearby tree, grasping my arm with a firm but gentle pull. "Come on!" A voice whispered urgently, a woman with a familiar face that registered just a moment too late. It was the same woman from the park, but the clarity of her expression had turned to steely resolve. No. I protested in desperation. "What are you doing? We should split up." Her grip tightened, forcing me to meet her gaze. "That's exactly what they want. We need to stay together. Just trust me." That I hesitated, the internal battle raging yet again. But as I turned to glance back at the oncoming sirens and steel vehicles weaving through the park, I felt the ground shift under me. This woman was my only ally in this storm. With a reluctant nod, I followed her deeper into the trees, her presence a lifeline in a sea of uncertainty that we weaved through a narrow path, dodging low-hanging branches and skirting beneath overgrown bushes. The further we ran from the park's main attractions, the more the sounds of pursuit faded into the background, swallowed up by the whispering leaves above us. "Who are they?" I gasped, struggling to catch my breath. "What do they want from me?" She slowed, her expression softening for a fleeting moment. "It's not just you. It's what you represent. Knowledge, curiosity. They want to harness it for their own ends, and silence anyone who threatens that." The gravity of her words weighed heavily in the air. My curiosity had led to this, a rabbit hole I never thought I'd enter, dragging me further from the life I knew. That we emerged from the dense foliage into a small clearing, a disheveled picnic area abandoned in haste. The wood smoke in the air clung to the back of my throat as our breaths mingled with the scent of nature, reminding me starkly that we had once been simply two people, merely coexisting in the world, before unraveling threads of fate had pulled us together. "What do I do now?" I whispered, panic rising like bile in my throat. "How do you know all of this?" The woman took a step back, leveling her gaze with mine. "I was once like you. I learned too much, and they wanted to silence me just the same. I got away, but I can't promise you the same." "What do you mean?" I asked, my mind racing. "Will I end up like you?" In that moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes, fear, but also the faint hint of resilience. "No. You have a chance to fight back. There's more at stake here than just you. But you need to trust me. We need to find the rest of the team. We can't do this alone, team." I echoed, struggling to comprehend the enormity of what lay ahead. "What team?" Just then, a distant sound punctuated our conversation, a faint tapping, persistent and urgent. My heart sank. It echoed like an old clock winding down, reminding me that time was finite. I turned to look closer at the sound when suddenly, it took shape figure emerging beyond the trees, a man apparently poised and alert, his hands raised. "In surrender, Sarah, is that you?" He called out, relief merging with caution in his voice. I turned back to the woman beside me. "Sarah, was it?" And she grasped my hand, pulling me closer in a protective gesture. "You shouldn't be here," she warned. "They're not safe." Before I could process the meaning of her words, a realization hit. The man wore a familiar jacket that I recognized from my workplace. My heart raced, conflicting emotions surging through me as a twisted sense of recognition cemented the ground beneath me. The next moment unfolded into chaos. Shadows flitted across our clearing, darting toward us, as the sirens bloomed back into life. Whoever this man was, he could be a ticket to answers or yet another thread leading me deeper into a dark, tangled web. "Get back!" I yelled, but the realization gnawed at me. I didn't just want answers. Whatever this was, it had already shaped my destiny in ways I couldn't yet understand. I felt the world narrowing, the path ahead shrouded in thick fog, and there was no choice left but to plunge headlong into the unknown. Where was this journey taking me? And more importantly, would I ever emerge from it? The clearing buzzed with tension, the air thick with uncertainty. Just seconds before, I had felt anchored beside Sarah, yet now the man in the familiar jacket sent tremors of doubt racing through me. Wait. Who are you? I called out, forcing my voice to hold firm despite the chaos erupting around us. That I can explain, he began, but his words were sliced through by another sharp howl of sirens, pulling me back to the dire reality of our situation. Stay close, Sarah insisted, pulling me farther from the encroaching danger. We need to move. The man, who still stood rigid like a sapling in a storm, shifted uneasily. I swear, I'm on your side, yes. And what side is that? I shot back, doubt lacing my tone. What do you really want? I just want to help, he replied, desperation edging his voice. I overheard some things back at work, things I'm not supposed to know. They're planning something terrible, and I thought they. Who is they? My heart thumped angrily. The world was spiraling into a confusing darkness where anyone could be an enemy, and it felt like a cruel joke that he had wandered into this storm. There was a sudden scrambling sound, and shadows crept closer, igniting panic in my chest. Sarah's grip tightened, drawing me into her side as we shielded ourselves behind a fallen log. It won't be long before they find us, she whispered, her voice tense with urgency. We have to get out of here now. If he's with you, well, use him as bait. No. I protested, spinning to face her. You don't even know him. How can we just trust a random guy? I'm not random. The man interjected, a hint of anger tempering his fear. Look, if you're in danger, I can get you to someone who can really help. But right now, they're closing in. What's your name? I cut through his frank defense, needing some shred of certainty in the whirlwind. Evan, he replied, urgency softening his tone as if my demand had caught him off guard. Evan Chen. I used Taos to. There was a weariness in my chest that began to echo the chaotic rhythm of the sirens. Sarah was glancing back toward the shadows, her eyes scanning for danger. Now isn't the time for stories. Either we go, or we stay and risk everything, she said sternly, but before another decision could be made, the first flashlights emerged from the trees. Beams of light sliced through the darkness, desperate to uncover our hiding place. My insides twisted, fueled by the primal urge to survive. Follow me, I urged, determination hardening my voice. I could feel the weight of ownership press down on me, something in my gut telling me that this was my moment to embrace direction instead of succumbing to the chaos. Evan darted beside me, and at that moment, I chose to trust him, hoping against hope that this decision wouldn't bury us deeper into treachery. His presence gave me a sliver of strength as we dashed deeper into the dimmest reaches of the park, leaving Sarah to keep beat behind us. Small branches clawed at my clothes, as if nature itself were urging me to reconsider my escape. But the dull thud of approaching footsteps only heightened my resolve. The heartbeats of my pursuers intertwined with the fear threading through me. Where do we go? Evan asked, breathless, as his shadow merged with mine under the thin sheen of moonlight. Anywhere but here. We need to find a way out, somewhere they don't know. USA safe zone. I realized with a jolt that I was no longer merely trying to survive an ordeal, I was learning to lead through it. As we dashed through the underbrush, I could feel my heart soar. Even so, fear's icy grip never truly loosened its hold. Faint voices echoed behind us, and Sarah's frantic whispers to stay low spurred my legs to move faster, but as we entered another clearing, my breath hitched, the ground morphed beneath me, revealing an old maintenance shed, its door cracked ajar, waiting like a secret whisper of safety. In there. I pointed, but the urgency pulsating from the woodland surrounding us was palpable and real. Evan skidded to a halt, glancing back for a moment before he lunged toward the shed. We can hide, regroup. He pushed the door wider and gestured us inside, the comforting darkness drawing us like moths to a flame, and then it heightened alarming realization that swirled my insides. It was too quiet in here, too still. What if they've already searched it? I gasped, the freedom of choice twisting into claustrophobia. Sarah, who had squeezed in behind us, shot a wary look towards the partly open window. Then we've got an advantage, she breathed, but as we huddled together, the unspeakable weight of uncertainty settled like a specter over us. The voices drew nearer, and just as I believed I could gather enough strength to make a plan, a chilling revelation gripped me. What if they know? A sudden crack echoed in the silence as the door swung backward, pushed open by an unseen hand. Shadows poured in. I couldn't breathe. And then I saw his face, one I thought I'd never have to confront again. The darkness clung to him like a cloak, and his eyes twinkled with betrayal. You thought you could run, he said, disdain creeping through his voice. You never should have come here. The shed was a tomb of silence, its musty air closing in around us like a vice. The figure stood silhouetted in the doorframe, and my heart raced as recognition washed over me like ice water. Marcus. The very man whose absence had once felt like heartbreak, the man whose decisions had forced my life into chaos again. That I should have known you'd find me here, I said, my voice a mere whisper, choked by both fear and the strain of our past. His gaze flickered to Evan and Sarah, unconcealed disdain glimmering like shards of glass. You've brought more company. Clever, he sneered, stepping fully into the shed's dim light. The door creaked ominously behind him as he crossed the threshold, sealing us into this suffocating space. What do you want, Marcus? I managed, clenching my fists to stifle the tremors coursing through me. Every moment felt precarious, as if the very ground was about to give way beneath us. That I want you to understand the gravity of what you're meddling in, he said, voice smooth, almost patronizing. You've been playing with fire, and now you're in over your head. But don't worry, I'm here to help. You've got to be kidding, I shot back, raw disbelief mingling with the anger bubbling inside me. You're the reason I've been running, am I? His expression twisted into something darkly humorous. You think you and your little band of misfits can escape the consequences? You never thought far enough ahead. Ignoring his taunts, I turned to Evan and Sarah, their faces mirroring the turmoil inside. We need to figure out how to get out of here. I felt a surge of desperation. How do you intend to do that? Marcus challenged, his posture relaxing, enjoying the moment. Because they're already closing in, and if anyone knows about hidden exits in this park, it's me. Evan, still panting from our hurried escape, exchanged glances with me, his eyes bright with resolve. We have to try to outmaneuver him. There's got to be a back door or something. But I felt crushed under the weight of indecision. Marcus' sudden reappearance transformed our already precarious situation into a full-blown crisis. This isn't a game. These people won't hesitate to hurt us, I whispered, fear tucking itself deep into my chest. Then you should listen to me. I can protect you. It was Marcus again, leaning confidently against a shelf, arms crossed, the former friend morphing seamlessly into an ominous threat. There is power in understanding the enemy, and right now, you don't even know who they are. But I do, Sarah shot back, why should we trust you? You're the enemy. Her voice quivered, but it held a steely edge. For now, he said, his voice low and measured, I can be your ally. But I'll need something from you in return. Like what? My brow knitted with suspicion, every instinct telling me to resist his manipulations. The location of the document, he replied, a sinister smile creeping at the corners of his mouth. Let's call it a trade. You give me that, and it'll guide you to safety. I can get you out of this mess. What document? A frown settled over Evan's forehead, confusion dawning. It doesn't matter, I started, feeling the walls close tighter around me. The tension hummed like an unseen current, the burden of hidden truths lurking just beyond the darkness. Of course, it matters, Marcus interjected smoothly. It's the only bargaining chip you have left. Every moment we waste is one where they could find us, or worse. No, I replied, gritting my teeth. I won't give you anything. Whatever you're involved in, whatever scheme you're peddling, I want no part of it. The firmness of my resolve felt shaky in the face of looming choices, yet I clung to it. Suit yourself. He stepped away from the door, casting lingering glances back over his shoulder, exuding a confidence that knotted my stomach. But know this, there are forces at play that will turn this park into a graveyard if you don't start playing ball. The room was silent, the shadows around us shifting as if they shared in our growing dread. I felt trapped, as though each of Marcus' words dripped with poison, embedding deeper into my psyche, voices erupted. Outside multiple sets, the sound rising in intensity. The time for deliberation was quickly evaporating. Go now. Sarah urged suddenly, seizing an opportunity born of pure instinct. If he's right, standing here will get us killed. But before I could respond, Marcus laughed, a low, taunting sound almost pleasurably cruel. You think you can leave? Where do you think you're going? The shadows morphed outside as figures flitted closer, their voices now discernible, crackling with purpose. The path was closing in, and I had to choose, would I risk opening that door, defying Marcus, or submit to his twisted game? Nowhere, actually, I muttered, uncertainty lacing my voice. My insides churned as a memory pierced through. Marcus' betrayal had once shattered my trust. Would I be foolish enough to resurrect dangerous alliances for safety? But that was when the shed began to tremble, the overhead lights flickering ominously, and my heart plummeted. From behind Marcus, a figure stepped into the light, a girl, unmistakable with familiar fiery hair and eyes, her expression resolute, yet unsure. My blood ran cold. Lily? I whispered, as the horrific realization sunk in. She had come looking for me, don't, was all she said, her voice a strained whisper, pleading from beyond the threshold. The room cracked open, familiarity threatened to unravel, pitting friend against friend, choice against desperation. And in that moment, uncertainty swirled around us like smoke, threatening to engulf everything we had fought to protect. The tremor of the shed echoed my own unsteady heart, and I felt my breath escape me in a shaky gasp. Lily's presence ignited a cascade of emotions: fear, fury, regret, all crashing together in an overwhelming wave. How had we ended up here, in this tangled web of loyalty and betrayal? What are you doing here? I managed, my voice raspy as if I were wrestling with the ghosts of our shared past. Looking for you, she stated simply, stepping forward with trepidation. I wanted to reach out, to pull her back from this palpable danger, but my limbs felt weighted, encumbered by doubt. Marcus' manic grin flickered into a darker shadow as he observed us, his amusement laced with something more sinister, as if the reveal was part of a game he controlled. Look at that, he taunted, his tone mocking. The prodigal daughter returns. Wouldn't it be poetic if she were to witness your downfall? Shut up, Marcus. Sarah snapped, her voice a shield against his venom. We don't have time for your twisted games. The chaos outside escalated, strangers' shouts morphing into an angry chorus in the distance, weaving their urgency into the air. Fear coursed through me, electrifying the atmosphere. Whatever plans Marcus had, they felt like a distant threat now overshadowed by the imminent danger closing in on us. Lily met my gaze, and in that moment, a silent conversation flickered between us. Please, she implored, I know you think you can protect me, but we need to go. Your choices affect all of us. Marcus's eyes glimmered with malicious intent. And how very sweet, dear Lily, to believe you have any say in this matter. You're merely a pawn. Don't listen to him. I called out to her, desperation seeping into my words. He's not our ally, he's been manipulating us from the start. Manipulating? Marcus scoffed, adjusting the collar of his jacket as if brushing off some invisible dust. I merely wield the truth you're too afraid to confront. An unrelenting wave of dread broke over me as I replayed fragments of our past, decisions spiraling like a murky river of regret. But wasn't it the truth he wielded that had shattered my life? Tears prickled at the corners of my eyes, threatening to spill over in the face of this turmoil. I had needed to protect Lily, to escape the shadows that ached with our shared history. But would dragging her back into this dark labyrinth offer salvation or just deepen the chasm between us? What do you know, Marcus? I demanded, shaking with anger. What do you think you can use against me? Suddenly, Evan interjected, his sharp voice slicing through the tension. Enough. We don't have time for this. We need to focus. The look of fierce determination in his eyes reignited my hope, a tether pulling me back toward action. Fine, let's go, I said, my voice clear and resolute. To the back of the shed. We'll find another way out. But before we could spring into action, the door suddenly jarred against the metal frame, slammed by an unseen force. A shout erupted, louder than the earlier murmurs. The figures outside were no longer just shades of shadow but now solid threats narrowing in. Marcus stepped forward, a dark gleam in his eyes. You really think you can escape? There's nowhere left to run. I wavered, my instincts ping-ponging between the desperate need to protect Lily and the paralyzing fear of the unknown. The inhabitants of this park were not content to play a waiting game. They were closing in, and I could feel their determination like a heavy weight pressing against my chest. Lily, I cried, my voice breaking like the fragile glass of my own resolve. I need you to trust me. We don't have to do this together, you can. I'm not going anywhere without you. Her declaration recoiled through the tense atmosphere, a promise entwined with her fierce loyalty. Yet I feared that the very act of standing together could also lead to our doom. Before I could find the words to respond, another loud crash reverberated through the shed, the sound echoing with an intensity that shook the walls. My pulse quickened as the door buckled under the weight of the resolute. Voices and fervent footsteps outside. In that moment of unfocused chaos, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a foreign sound that felt like an ill-timed omen. I fished it out, heart racing, and glanced at the screen. A suspicious number blinking ominously across the display, words forming a dire message: trust no one. They're watching. I felt the air in the room shift. Every heartbeat echoed with a newfound urgency. Go. Now. I urged, focusing on getting everyone out, but as I turned, a surge of dread wrapped around me tighter than before. Lily's expression shifted, fear and something else, something darker crossing her features. What do you mean they're watching? How do you know? My heart sank as that revelation hung between us, a terrifying truth that complicated everything. All at once, I understood something sinister that rippled just beneath the surface of our lived experiences. The stakes had transformed. We were not just running from Marcus. Someone was hunting us, and the shadows were tighter than my worn and fraying sense of safety. As I turned toward the door to lead us away, another crack split through the air. It reverberated with the threat of the loss of everything I held dear, and just as I reached for the handle, I felt an insatiable pull in the pit of my stomach. Would this be the moment everything unraveled? Would I dare step into the unknown where fate awaited? The contemplation of choice loomed heavily as I turned yet again, locking eyes with Lily. Whatever happens next, we face it together. But outside, the door gave way, and the world bathed in blinding light. Then I heard its sound of laughter, a chilling cadence of malevolent glee that echoed from the darkness, puncturing the fragile bubble we had clung to. My breath caught in my throat. Who was really behind this? Questions echoed in a chorus of rising panic, leaving us on the precipice of forsaking everything we had known. The blinding light engulfed us as the door swung open, casting our fragile fears into stark relief. I squinted against the glare, straining to decipher the figures that loomed in the distance. Their laughter was haunting, slicing through the chaotic air with precision, turning my bones to ice. Heart pounding, I turned back to Lily, who stood frozen, transfixed by the surreal scene unfolding before us. For just a moment, her eyes flicked to mine, searching for reassurance amidst the shadows that seemed to stretch and shift around us. What do we do now? She whispered, the tremor in her voice betraying her fear more profoundly than any words could capture. Stick together, I urged, trying to inject strength into my voice despite the churning dread in my stomach. No matter what. We need to find a way out of here. Evan nodded, stepping slightly ahead of us, a protective barrier against whatever threats awaited. But the laughter grew louder, echoing through the wooded expanse, and I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that we were no longer in control. Suddenly, Marcus' shadow morphed into something more ominous as he slipped past the threshold, his grin unsettlingly calm, as if savoring the chaos he had orchestrated. You think they're really here for you? He taunted, his voice sultry and smooth, an intoxicating poison that sunk deep into my resolve. They're much more interested in the things hidden beneath the surface. Shut up! I shouted, fury igniting my voice. You don't get to dictate this world any longer. But as I spoke, a chill swept through me, tightening around my throat like a vice. The mocking laughter of our unseen pursuers hung like a heavy fog. I felt the ground beneath me heaving with a sense of impending doom, a reality dragging us backward into the past we'd been fighting so hard to escape. "Don't listen to him," Lily whispered, grasping my hand tightly, urging me to focus. "We can't let him manipulate us again." "You don't get it," I replied, my voice trembling with an emotion I struggled to contain. "He knows everything, our history, our weaknesses. He'll exploit them if we stay here." In that moment, something shifted in the air. It was as if the tendrils of our past began weaving into the present, a tapestry rich with memories and regrets. It was only now, facing the darkness together, that I fully understood the weight of the choices we had made. A sudden rustle punctuated my thoughts, and I turned to see a figure emerging from the trees, a woman, clad in dark clothing, her face obscured by an oversized hood. She moved with an ease that felt almost otherworldly, as if she belonged to the shadows. When she raised her hand, stills from our past moments flashed like vivid snapshots in my mind, strange, haunting visions that filled the space with dread. "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice steady despite the tumult within. "Just a messenger," she replied, her voice soft but haunting, like a whisper carried on the wind. "There are forces at play far beyond your understanding. You think it's Marcus who toys with your fate? You've barely scratched the surface." Even as dread pooled in my gut, an unfamiliar sense of hope flickered at the edges, igniting a fire of defiance. "What do you mean? Why are you here now?" The woman stepped closer, her dark eyes shimmering with an intensity one couldn't understand. "To warn you. They're coming for you. The shadows are shifting, and you must decide quickly where your loyalty lies." Lily shifted beside me, uncertainty flickering across her features. "How do we know we can trust you?" "Because trust is a luxury you cannot afford right now. The clock is ticking." As if on cue, the laughter again crescendoed, warped and echoed through the air, sending icy tendrils of panic down my spine. We were running out of time, and as the woman raised her arm, I saw something glinting in her hand, a silver key, ancient yet somehow newly vital. "Take this. It may prove useful," she said. "But remember, its power comes with a price." Before I could grasp the enormity of her words, before I could react, she slipped back into the shadows, leaving us holding nothing but the weight of uncertain choice. "What are we supposed to do with that?" Evan asked, his brow furrowing in confusion as he pointed at the key, still glinting in the fading light. "We must figure out the door it opens," I replied, uncertain if the truth would reveal a path to safety or lead us deeper into the abyss. Just then, a chorus of shouts erupted outside, sharper now, more demanding, and the ground itself felt as though it were shaking under the weight of our choices. "Run!" I yelled, instinctively moving toward the back of the shed, but we barely took a step before the door swung open violently, revealing a group surrounding Marcus, their faces painted with a mix of fury and something darker, far more insidious. "Nowhere to run, my friends," Marcus declared, stepping forward with an air of triumph that made bile rise in my throat. Amidst the chaos, I glanced at Lily, feeling the fire of determination reignite in my chest. I would not let the past consume us again. No matter the cost, I had to protect her, to shield her from the truth that threatened to unravel everything. But as I backed away from the gaping doorway, the barrage of laughter echoed in a cacophony that felt insurmountable. My eyes darted toward the key in my hand, and I pondered its weight, a tool, a curse, or perhaps the only thing that could manifest a painful truth. As Marcus stepped closer, his eyes glistening with a manic fervor, a revelation struck me hard, clutching that key might lead us to our salvation or our destruction, and then, with that realization looming in our silent standoff, I felt the ground tremble beneath me. A figure emerged, flanked by menacing shapes. The reality of our situation exploded, a promise of confrontation waiting in the wings, and I understood everything was about to change, but at what cost? The shadows seemed to thicken, each heartbeat echoing louder in the charged silence that followed. My grip tightened involuntarily around the silver key, its cool surface grounding me, anchoring me amidst the chaos. The figures surrounding Marcus shifted like restless phantoms, their faces etched with determination and an unsettling hunger. Do you think you can escape what you've become? Marcus sneered, and the venom dripping from his words struck like a whip, lacerating the air between us. It's too late for that, you know. You're bound to your past in ways you can't even fathom. I won't allow you to dictate any part of my future, I retorted, the words spilling from my lips with a fierce conviction that surprised even me. But fear coiled like a serpent around my heart. What if he was right? What if our past always had a say in our destinies? The shadows twisted and shrieked as the laughter of unseen specters resumed, drowning out my thoughts, amplifying the echoes of lost moments and broken promises. Let's take the easy way out, Marcus continued, stepping forward, his demeanor shifting from taunting to predatory. Join me. Together, we could wield power that you'll never understand, power that would put you above all this. His eyes flickered with a dark allure, and I could feel Lily's hand trembling against mine as she fought against the magnetic pull of his enticement. Evan stepped slightly in front of us, his posture radiating defiance. We won't follow you, Marcus. Not now, not ever. There was a tremor of uncertainty in his voice, a mere shadow of doubt that quickly vanished, replaced by a fierce protective instinct. The echoes of laughter pulsed in response, a mocking chorus urging the chaos to envelop us, but I couldn't afford to lose myself to despair. We need to find the door, I murmured, barely aware that I was speaking aloud until Lily squeezed my hand tighter, as if to anchor me against the growing tide of darkness. The silver key suddenly felt heavy, a potent reminder of the stakes at play. I looked at Lily, her eyes bright with determination even as fear gnawed at her resolve. If we find that door, we might just break free from this madness, I whispered, as the laughter intensified, almost mocking our attempts to resist. A sudden movement caught my attention. Marcus had turned, gesturing to his followers with an insatiable hunger that made my skin crawl. You'll soon see the futility in your resistance, he said, that smooth voice now holding an eerie calm. Let's show them what happens to fireflies when they dare to dance in the dark. Fear coursed through my veins at the threat, but juxtaposed against it was the flicker of hope ignited by the mysterious messenger's warning. They were coming for us. Those unknown forces were nearing. Time is slipping away, I whispered to Lily, feeling the urgency grip me tighter. We must act now. Just as I stepped forward, an explosion of light erupted from the tree-line. A burst of color painted the dark, and figures emerged with urgent resolve. They weren't the shadows I had feared. They seemed to be rallying against Marcus Thrall, charging toward him with fierce determination. More allies, I breathed, almost disbelievingly, as relief washed over me. Maybe, just maybe, we weren't alone in this fight. But Marcus' laughter rose above the burgeoning clash, a sinister tempest, and his eyes glinted with madness. Fools, he spat, his voice laced with contempt. You think numbers will change your fate? The laughter of the crowd morphed into a clash, and in that moment of chaos, I felt a shift in the air. I glanced down at the key, its surface shimmering even amongst the conflict. With newfound determination, I turned to Lily and Evan. Follow my lead. I shouted above the frenetic sound surrounding us as I sprinted toward the shimmering doorway that had materialized at the edge of the chaos, glimmering like a beacon amid turmoil. In that fraction of a moment swept with adrenaline, I seized the opportunity presented by the flurry. My heart pounded loudly in my ears, drowning out everything except the urgent need to escape. We pushed through the tumult, dodging grasping hands and unfurling darkness, until I was clasping the doorknob with shaking fingers. But as I turned the key, a visceral shock coursed through my body, and the laughter of shadows faded into a chilling silence. The door creaked open to reveal a blinding light, more intense than anything I had ever faced. Before I could process the weight of my choices, a piercing scream shattered the air. I jerked back, only to see one of Marcus' followers crumple to the ground, the others momentarily stunned, but it wasn't the screams or the violence that made my breath hitch. It was the face of the crumpled figure, the messenger from before, her eyes wide with terror as the darkness enveloped her, swallowed by the very shadows that were meant to forsake Marcus. No! I gasped, my heart plummeting to my stomach. The light behind me beckoned, but violence chased at my heels, and there stood Marcus, a manic smile painted across his face. You think you can escape? No one has ever succeeded against the tide of their past. And in that instant, under the crushing weight of fear and regret, the key began to glow brighter in my hand, resonating against the chaos, splitting the air with an energy that felt otherworldly. The truth of its power pulsed through me. Had a choice to make, and then, against the shrieks of betrayal and darkness, I understood escape was not merely a matter of finding the door. It would require a sacrifice anchored deep within the heart, a confrontation with my own shadows that I had long sought to outrun. As the chaos erupted around me, the reality of that choice bore down like an avalanche. This was just the beginning, not the end. The echoes of laughter transformed into something more sinister, and as I prepared to summon the courage from within, everything began to spiral into the unknown, leaving me teetering on the precipice of my past, ready to plunge deeper than I ever thought possible. The silence left by the sudden scream hung thick in the air, a heavy blanket that threatened to smother my resolve. I could barely process the reality of what had transpired. My heart raced as the world shifted around me. The light beyond the doorway shimmered temptingly, but the shadows danced closer, drawn to the scent of our fear. "Get away from her!" Evan shouted, breaking the suffocating quiet that held us captive. He lunged, trying to shield me from the encroaching darkness, but the chaos had already swallowed the messenger whole, and I felt a deep emptiness where hope once flickered bright. She had warned us, and the cost of that warning lay broken on the ground, just out of reach. Focus. "We have to move," Lily cried, her voice trembling but fierce, snapping me back to reality. "We can't let him win." I turned to my friends, their faces fierce yet frightened, mirroring my own tumultuous emotions. The weight of decision bore down like a crushing force. The shimmering key pulsed in my grasp. Was it a beacon or a curse? What would it unlock beyond the doorway, and what would it demand in return? "Together," I whispered, knowing it was now or never. I stepped back toward the luminous portal, the metallic tang of fear mingling with the electric energy crackling through the air. But it felt different now, infused with the tragedy that had just unfolded. I had to acknowledge the darkness in me, only then could we overcome. But Marcus had other plans. "You think you can save the day with flimsy words and fleeting light?" he sneered, advancing with predatory grace. "Face it, you're just as dark as the shadows you fear. You're bound to them, and they will consume you in the end." His taunts wove tight chains around my resolve. "You don't know me," I shot back, but even as I spoke, doubt slithered through the cracks of my mind. Could I wield the very light I sought without succumbing to the shadows that whispered at my heels? Then Evan stepped closer, clenching his fist with defiance. "We've come too far to cower now, right?" His voice trembled but imbued with a fierce determination that kindled a spark within me. "We need to believe we're stronger together, stronger than him." The truth in his words sent a fresh wave of courage coursing through my veins. Memories of our laughter and shared dreams flickered like stars in a sky darkened by approaching storms. If we fell here, we would fall together, but I wasn't ready for that yet. Not when there was still fight left in us. I took a deep breath, the key thrummed with a potent energy, resonating with the very essence of my being. I focused on the light, on the warmth of friendship, and the promise of shared love that had always kept the darkness at bay. In unison, our hands joined, a triangle of strength formed between us, echoing the circles of light that had once connected us all. "On three," I said, my eyes locked onto the doorway. 1, 2, 3, we surged forward toward the portal, hands linked as laughter and hope filled the silence that preceded chaos. The moment we crossed the threshold, it felt as if the universe drew in a breath, but the chaos of the outside world surged around us. Marcus roared in fury, his shadows clawing at our heels, attempting to drag us back to the clutches of despair. "You think you can escape your fate? It's written in blood and shadow, with every fiber of my being," I yelled. "Not today, Marcus." The key ignited, a surge of pure light exploding forth, pushing back the darkness as the walls around us began to shimmer and ripple, but just as we tumbled through the doorway, a terrible crack of thunder shook the ground. It felt as if reality itself was tearing apart, and a sharp pain stabbed through my chest as if the shadows were grasping to pull me back, fighting with every ounce of their darkness. That I stumbled into the light with Evan and Lily, but I could feel the ground beneath me starting to ripple, bending and twisting as if it was alive, refusing us entry into this new world. Hold on. Evan shouted, his grip tightening around my hand. The bright light pulsed behind us now, growing dangerously dim as though the portal was closing, leaving only a sliver of time before it vanished forever, and then, before I could comprehend what was happening, I caught a glimpse of a figure emerging from the shadows behind Marcus. It was the messenger, the one I thought had been lost. Her eyes glowed as she reached out toward me, tears glistening in the strange light. "You don't understand," she shrieked, her voice tentative and urgent. "You were never meant to leave like this. You have to know the truth about your past." My heart lurched, straining against the throbbing pulse of fear and hope. I could either follow Lily and Evan into the unknown light or stay behind and unravel the secrets that could either save or destroy us all. "Go!" I screamed back, my voice breaking against the roar of shadows. "I need to know." But as the key's final burst of energy lit up the darkness, the last thing I saw was the messenger's anguished expression as the portal snapped closed behind us, severing the world I once knew. The shadows fell silent, leaving me to grapple with the enormity of the choice I had made. And as reality settled in around us, with the groan of the world shifting harmoniously back into place, a wave of anxiety washed over me. Whatever lay beyond the light felt like a sword's edge, teetering between salvation and despair, and the weight of my decision began to pull me into a spiral of wondering, of doubt, of regret. In that moment, I understood, the path I had chosen would forge the rest of my fate, both present and future, and I was left standing, trembling before the precipice of an uncharted destiny, knowing that the shadows were not far behind. The world around me shifted in a dizzying whirlwind, crumbling beneath the weight of my decisions. I took a breath, feeling the air solidify in my lungs, but uncertainty still clung to me like a second skin. The echo of Marcus' voice twisted in my mind, a haunting reminder of my past, of the twisted friendship that had once felt like protection but had ultimately spiraled into betrayal. This place we stood at the precipice of possibility, yet within the vibrancy of the light lay a dark thread, a tether to the echoes of my actions. With Evan and Lily beside me, their faith fortifying my own, I could not shake the gnawing fear of what still lurked in the shadows, the unfulfilled promises and the muddied truths of our stories. "Where are we?" Evan asked, his voice steadier than mine. With my heart still racing, I stepped forward, eyes scanning the expanse before us. The landscape unfurled like an artist's canvas splashed with bold brushstrokes, a lively park bathed in sunlight, children running, laughter bubbling like soft streams. But a lingering heaviness crept around the edges. "Does it feel real to you?" I whispered, consumed by foreboding. "I can't shake this feeling that we might still be trapped." Lily's hand brushed against mine, her warmth radiating assurance. "It feels safe," she replied, yet even she hesitated, eyes darting around as if searching for the hidden cracks in our newfound reality, but I had to push deeper. Part of me clung to the belief that this was my chance for renewal, for healing. And yet, I felt the encroaching reminder of secrets still needed to be unearthed. "We need to find out what this is all about," I said, fixing my gaze in front of us, carving a path toward understanding, away from shadows. Stepping into this new world ignited something within me, an ember of hope. We walked through the park's vibrant greenery, flowers blooming in an explosion of color, the colors too bright to be mere coincidence against the backdrop of shadows we knew. But as we made our way toward a large oak tree, there it was, the weighty tension between longing and dread. As if sensing my resolve, a figure darted from behind the tree, cloaked in shadows, the messenger. My breath caught. "You came through," she said, her voice softer now, framed with urgency and regret. "I had to warn you, warn us." "Why?" I managed to stammer, caught between confusion and relief at seeing her again. She took a step closer, and I could feel the tension unraveling just slightly. "Because what lies ahead tests the bonds you think you've forged. You think you've escaped your past, but their influence is still at play." That I exchanged glances with Evan and Lily, the truth of her words sparking resonances of our entwined adventures and the remnants of our unreliable allies. Fear crouched in the corners of my mind, clinging to the edges, ready to dissolve whatever bonds we forged anew. "But we can change," Evan said, a fierce determination in his voice. We can fight against them, only if you trust each other, she replied, her eyes snapping to mine. Your greatest weapon is unity, yet your greatest enemy lies within. The air in the park shifted, shadows creeping in like a dark fog. My heart raced as the truth of her words sank in. You mean, what do I need to face? The truth you have buried, the pain you fear confronting. A reckoning with betrayal and loss. Only then can you claim the light you seek. That I held her gaze. It felt as if the fragments of my past were rushing back to me, unbidden, the weight of decisions I had made echoing through the years. In that instant, I realized it wasn't just about escaping darkness. It was about breaking the chains of guilt I had harbored, the link of betrayal that tethered us. Marcus' sins didn't define me. Take me to them, I breathed, the enormity of my choice pulsating within me. I'm ready to confront my past. I won't run anymore, the messenger nodded solemnly, leading us deeper into the park, toward a clearing teeming with vibrant energy. But my heart hammered louder, each pulse echoing the gravity of what lay ahead. Would I be strong enough to face what was coming? Would our newfound unity be able to withstand the doubts that threatened us? As we reached the center of the clearing, looming shadows coalesced, twisting into familiar shapes, those I once called friends but had lost to betrayal and fear. The laughter spilled out from behind those familiar faces, a cacophony that felt both inviting and tormenting. And there stood Marcus, his posture relaxed yet sinister, a wolf cloaked in sheep's clothing. Welcome, he said, that wicked smile hiding perilous depths. I see you have brought some friends along for the ride. Tension surged between our respective factions and I felt the pull of loyalties tugging at my heart. I'm ready, I said, head held high, determination coursing fiercely through me. I'll face my past and whatever you think you can use against me. And with those words, the merriment of shadows swirled around us, merging with laughter that echoed, mocking our defiance. But deeper still, beneath the layer of mockery, I felt thrum of anguish. What's done is done, I declared, stepping forward, unafraid. We are not bound to what you've manipulated. Our power lies in each other. The laughter faltered for just a moment, the shadows faltering alongside, and as Marcus opened his mouth to reply, I took a breath and let my voice rise, calling forth every wound, every moment of truth I had left unsaid. I forgive you, Marcus. I forgive you for believing the darkness could claim us. It can't anymore. What erupted from me was a light that pierced through layers of shadows around, reverberating with a fierce resolve. It engulfed the space. The laughter turned from mockery into shrieks of unwillingness, and the figures around me ash-blurred shadows, a reality I had once embraced until it turned bitter. Peace bathed me as we stood together, united, each drawing strength from one another as we formed a beacon brighter than our tremors of fear. Let go of the past, I whispered, feeling the weight of my own forgiveness flowing through me and offering to darkness. I am not your pawn anymore, and in that reverberating moment of acceptance, the laughter shifted, dissolving into echoes of understanding and resentful sighs. The shadows drew back, and as if let loose, I felt Marcus' grip weaken. The light surged around us, illuminating the depths of choices I had made. Were no longer the darkness would chain us. Together, we stood stronger than the betrayal, united. In that embrace of forgiveness, I understood, I had chosen acceptance over regret, and in doing so, claimed a luminous truth that would forever illuminate our path forward. The world shimmered around us, dismantling the darkness piece by piece until it flickered out of view, leaving only radiant warmth in its wake. As the shadows fell silent at last, I turned to Lily and Evan, the last remnants of uncertainty fading like a distant memory. We had faced down the darkness together, emerging with our truths intact. Forgiveness became our foundation, and I knew, with every fiber of my being, we were ready to step into the unknown, forging ahead hand in hand, hearts aligned with resilience. The finality of our past shifted into the possibilities of our shared future, rippling through me like a gentle breeze, whispering of hope to come. Together, I said quietly, squeezing their hands. Let's move forward. No more shadows. Turning toward the horizon, with all our histories behind us, I embraced the uncertainty ahead, wondering what tomorrows would bring, yet knowing we would face them as one. The world sparkled like 1,000 stars, and in that beautiful moment, I realized, the shadows could never touch the light we had crafted together.